is LoG, and welcome to another edition of LoG Power-Ups. Today's power-up, we will be focusing on something that I call Staggered Patterns, which are patterns that you can easily apply to any lead figure that you're already playing. These patterns will add shape and accent to your figures, making them a little bit more interesting sounding. This power-up will be split into parts 1 and 2, and at the end of each video, you'll find a backing track that gradually increases tempo for you to play over. Once you have both parts down, you'll play over the final video that will again have a backing track that gradually increases tempo. If you guys enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And now let's get on to part 1. Okay, so let's start this power-up by going over the note material that we're using in these shapes that we're going to be doing throughout the entire power-up. It starts with the standard minor arpeggio that you'll find thousands of YouTubers playing about 50 BPM faster than they should play, and that shape looks like this. That's it. What is this shape? That's a 1, flat 3 on the same string, 5, then 1, then flat 3, 5, and then reaching up to 1 on the same string. Super common arpeggio shape that everyone plays. I'm sure you play it as well. That is what this shape, or that's what this whole power-up pretty much comes from. But we're going to make a couple little changes. Change number 1 is adding in the flat 7 to that. So instead of 1, flat 3, 5, 1, we're going to play 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, and then continue 1, flat 3, 5, and then right up to 1. We're not adding the other flat 7 up top. We're not playing that. We're just going right to the 1. So that's the second step. 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 5, 1. And then the final step to get the general note material that we're playing here is getting rid of the 3 and playing the 4 instead. So instead of 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, it's 1, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And then instead of playing the flat 3 right there, like we were, playing 4, which is right there, up a whole step. Flat 3 and 4, always a whole step apart, right? So we have 1, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, 4, 5, reach up to 1. So if you don't know what this sound is, you can pretty much call it a suspended sound or a suspended arpeggio, because the chord that we're really playing is that, a suspended chord, and we're just arpeggiating it by playing the notes individually. The whole idea behind suspended is when you have a major chord or a minor chord and you just get rid of the 3 and play either note next to the 3 in the scale, so the 2 or the 4. I'm choosing to play the 4 right here. You could play the 2 if you wanted to, but I like the way the 4 sounds, so I'm going to play it. And I'm also enhancing the sound a little bit by playing that flat 7 in there, giving me some more notes to play, and it just sounds pretty cool. So that's the sound that I'm playing right here, suspended with the 4 and the flat 7, just for fun. Cool thing about suspended is you can pretty much use them on top of minor whenever you want. So if you're soloing over like an F sharp minor chord, you can of course play F sharp minor or whatever you would normally do, but you could also play F sharp suspended over that. The reason why, and not even just suspended, but the exact sound that I'm playing, 1, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, 4, 5, 1. You can do that because the notes that we're adding in here, the 4 and the flat 7, both exist in the minor pentatonic scale, right? If I play minor pentatonic, right? That's 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So we're just borrowing the notes from the pentatonic scale and kind of infusing our chord with them. And we know it works because minor pentatonic works over pretty much every minor context that you'll ever play. So you can borrow some of the notes from that sound and put it into your runs and create new passages, kind of like we're doing right here. So really cool idea. You can use it whenever you want over any minor context, and it's very cool. So yeah, the whole idea with this power-up is we're using this arpeggio shape, again, 1, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, 4, 5, 1, bass off of F sharp, and then we're doing it a couple times there, and we go back a fret, do it off of F. Literally the same exact shape, the same pattern, everything. We're just going back a fret, and then we go back up a fret and do it all over again. So that's the material that we're using. So let's now go over the pattern that we're playing. So really easy to come up with patterns like this, and I think the patterns are really valuable too, because you can take a shape that is otherwise just a straight arpeggio up and down, and by playing patterns or playing these different kind of shapes inside the larger arpeggio or larger scale or whatever it is that you're doing, you can get a lot lot of mileage out of it, and it doesn't just sound like you're just going up and down and up and down an arpeggio or a scale. It gives it some extra little flavor. It gives it like an accent pattern. You know, if you just play a straight arpeggio up and down, but that's your accent pattern. You have two accent patterns, or two accents, I should say. The start, the top, or the bottom, the top, and back and forth, right? But when you do a pattern like this, which is this one, like that, when you play a pattern like that, there are these like little stops in your ascent. It's not just straight up and straight down. That's why I call this a staggered pattern, because you're kind of going up and then down and then up and then down again. And it kind of creates these cool little peaks in the line that creates what I was calling like an accent pattern. Kind of these hits that sound really cool. And they're super easy to create, because all you really need to do, start on a note, choose a note that you're going to go to, and then just walk back, right? So that's what this first part is. I'm starting here. I'm choosing to walk to flat 7 and then back. So 1, 4, 5, flat 7, back to the 1. That's how it starts. Like that. And then once I get to the 1, I'm choosing to walk up to the 4 and then back. So not back all the way. You'll see that in a second. So up to the flat 7 first. 1, 4, 5, flat 7, backwards, 5, 4. When I hit the 1, go all the way up to the top 4. So 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, 4, up on the B string. Then I turn around and only walk down to the 5, which is right there, and then walk back up, flat 7, 1. So you notice what I'm doing. I'm just choosing points to walk to and then coming back. And then say, okay, I'm going to now walk up way farther, but I'm not going to go all the way back. I'm only going to come back a couple notes, etc. You can just pick random notes that you want to jump to, walk to them, walk back to different ones, and it creates this staggered shape that is very cool. Now, of course, you don't want to just do it randomly. And, you know, you always want to make sure that the part that you eventually come up with sounds cool to you. Very important that it sounds cool. But this is a really easy way to just start to get some ideas. You can do this with arpeggios. You can do this with scales. You can really do it with anything you want. And it really gets a lot of material out of something that's very simple. So let's go over this whole part one more time so you can really understand what it's doing. Again, the first little piece, walking up to flat 7 and back. Now that I'm back, I'm walking all the way up to the 4 there on the B string. Now I'm on the 4. I walk back to the 5. So 4, 1, flat 7, 5. Once I get to the 5, up 2 notes. Just flat 7, 1. And that's where we're ending. So I'm going to play it a couple times without talking. You can see what it sounds like, what it looks like. That's all we're doing today. One more time. Notice it creates kind of different accent patterns. Bum, 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 bum. You hear these different hits that are happening because of where you're choosing to turn around or end and start at a different spot. Very cool in my opinion. I like these a lot. So that's the general pattern. Let's now talk about what the right hand is doing. You can see what my left hand's doing. It kind of, once you get in that position, everything flows pretty easily, pretty self-explanatory. The right hand is going to be a little bit trickier. So I'll show you what I'm doing. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the best thing for you to do if you're not comfortable with this, but by all means, give it a try. And I'll show you some other ways to do it if you'd rather pick the whole thing. So what I'm doing is this. So I'm starting with the first, the 1, the 4. It's pretty much just pick hammer on. Pretty much whenever I'm running this, if I have 2 notes on one string, I'm doing a hammer on or a pull off pretty much all the time. So as I'm working up like this or ascending, it's going to be a hammer on, right? There's that 1 to 4. Then the next note on the D string, I'm using my middle finger to grab. So that's pick, hammer on, middle finger right there. Then I'm doing a downstroke for the flat 7, walking back with 1 upstroke to handle the 5 and the 4, like that. And then a final downstroke to repeat the root on the bottom. Like that. Again, pick, hammer on, finger, downstroke, upstroke handling both of those notes, and then a final downstroke. And again, that upstroke handling both notes, that's me flowing through both strings. Most people call that economy picking or sweep picking. That's what's happening. Okay? If that's not comfortable, you can, of course, not use a finger. If you'd rather not use your fingers, you want to pick everything, you can easily do pick, hammer on, downstroke, and then an upstroke to handle all 3 of those strings. So downstroke, up, up, up. That's 1 upstroke handling the flat 7, 5, and the 4, and then a downstroke to repeat the 1. That's the way I'm doing it. You can try like this. Totally cool with that. I'm not necessarily that good at that type of picking configuration. That's why I use the finger. But you can, of course, do whatever you want. Also, if you're a really awesome alternate picker, you could just alternate pick the whole thing. I wish I could do that. I can't, so I'm not going to. But that's something you can try. Okay, that's the first part. Now, as we turn around and go all the way up to the 4, it's pretty much the same thing. So here we are, second time we're hitting the 1. So we're going up to the flat 7. Bam, now we're back on the 1. We're going to walk up the same way. Pick, hammer on. I'm using a finger to play the 5. Then pick with the flat 7, hammering on the 1 right there. Right? Then I'm picking with not with my finger, with a downstroke right there. Turning around, upstroke to play the root, pulling off to the flat 7. Again, like I mentioned earlier, whenever I'm playing 2 notes on the same string, I'm almost always hammer on or pulling off. It's a lot easier. It kind of keeps it flowing well. So let me play the whole thing one more time. Second time I'm playing the 1 all the way up to the 4. Right? There's the 4 up top. Upstroke to playing the root, pull off to the flat 7. I'm doing an upstroke again on the 5 and then a downstroke on the flat 7, hammering on to the final 1. So let me play that pretty slow so you can see what it looks like. Notice that last figure. So I'm doing downstroke, upstroke, pull off, upstroke again, downstroke, hammer on. That's for that 4, 1, flat 7, 5, flat 7, 1. One thing that I find myself doing sometimes, I don't do it all the time, but I think it might help, and that's this. Notice what I'm doing here. Downstroke, upstroke here, pulling off, and then another upstroke. Now watch that. My right hand is not doing anything during that pull off. So what it's actually doing, because it's about to do another upstroke, 2 upstrokes, kind of not 100% in a row, but sort of in a row, I'm actually prepping the next upstroke while my left hand is busy doing that pull off. So watch this. Downstroke, upstroke. You see my right hand right now? It's actually on the D string, even though I still have a pull off to do, right? There's that note, pull off, but my right hand is ready to go on that D string. So that might be something to try. If you're doing that pull off right here, you start it with an upstroke. While you're doing this pull off, your right hand is already sitting on the D string, ready to go to do that next upstroke. So that might be something useful to try to kind of prep, plan ahead so that those upstrokes are comfortable. Again, completely up to you. You can experiment with however you want to do it. But that is something that I do once in a while, and I think it's kind of helpful. So let me play the whole thing a couple more times. You can see what I'm doing. And that last one's a hammer on to the 1 right there. That's pretty much it. Play it one more time, a little slower. And that's it. So again, focus on keeping it smooth, figure out a comfortable fingering that works for you. Start it really slow, make sure you memorize it, and then we'll work up with the track. So the track is going to run from, I believe, 90 to 170. I actually have all of these tracks going pretty high. So again, you don't have to work it up to 170, but I think you should strive for that, kind of build your endurance, build your stamina, etc. But you have to make sure that whatever you're doing with your right hand is super smooth, super concrete, because once you're at 170, if your right hand is not doing, the most efficient thing it can do, it's going to fall apart. I can guarantee it. So the track, of course, is going to run like this. 2 repetitions of this pattern on F sharp. So that sounds like this. Hold it, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And then for the next repetition, we're simply going back a fret to F natural and doing the same thing. 2, 3 again. 2, 3, 4. And then for the repetition, we just simply go back up to F sharp, do it all over again. So that's what this track will be. Again, we're running from 90 to 170. You don't have to get all the way up to 170, but I would really strive for that because it'll really test your fingering and your right hand. So let's get on to that track. All right, that does it for part 1. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and I'll see you all in part 2.